In 2018, Jeff found a 1989 black Jaguar XJS, listed on the car sales website, at a reasonable price for the time, with only 113,000 kilometers on the clock. It was located in Victoria, not far from his grandson's Nick's place. As he was an apprentice motor mechanic at the time, Jeff asked Nick to have a look at it. He gave it a good report after a brief inspection, so he bought it online without seeing it personally. Jeff had a telephone chat with the owner, who told him he'd had it for 10 years and said all the right things, so he bought it without seeing it personally. You know where this is going, right? Although it drove well, Jeff trailered it home from Victoria, then stashed it, and decided to transfer the registration. He also applied for a Jaguar Heritage Certificate. That's when he discovered it was originally dark blue and was sold new in Tokyo. To register the car in New South Wales, he had to prove it had been registered in Australia for at least 2 years, as it had not come with any import approval. The previous owner was able to furnish a couple of registration certificates, so that overcome that hurdle. Once registered, Jeff was finally able to drive it and discovered it was leaking coolant. Imagine his surprise when he discovered the top left radiator hose was split. Not only was it split, but clearly had been like this for years and had not been filled with coolant, only water. What seems to have happened was the air got into the system and combined with water, accelerated the buildup of aluminium oxide at that point. The result was that there was only a tiny hole about 8 mm diameter in the middle of the corrosion buildup to allow a minuscule flow of coolant through. Jeff then extracted the radiator and found that it was clogged up with grass and debris behind the oil cooler. Who knows how much crud had accumulated inside it as well, so the solution was to find a new aluminium radiator on eBay, and convert it to a 16-inch Davies Craig electric fan to aid cooling in traffic. Jeff also added a 10 unit to this as well to keep the temperature under complete control within an electronic controller. Finally it was drivable and he started using it on the odd club run, such as a trip to Nowra, and a bit of domestic use. However, he noticed that the oil pressure was low, and fitted a new sensor in the vain hope that this was the problem. Of course, it wasn't, and a test with a manual gauge proved this to be the case. So the evaluation at this point was, the XJS had a very good body shell with no rust, good gearbox and suspension, but an engine with low oil pressure and suspect paint job as it was flaking around the top of the windscreen. That's when the slow conversion started. The basis of the rebuild was centered around the specifications offered by Tom Walkinshaw's TWR organization, which would take your new XJS and convert it to a factory-approved model, providing you had deep pockets. Jeff had the complete price list and all of the specifications, so knew exactly what had to be done to make a replica. Scrounging around, he found a gent in Victoria who had imported a batch of 6-litre V12s from the USA. He acquired a 1996 engine with coil packs for a rate far below the cost of rebuilding the 5.3-litre engine. Then he found Bruce Grant, a local Jaguar specialist supplier, had a couple of GetRag 265 5-speed manual boxes in stock. A manual conversion kit was acquired from Simply Performance in the UK. This was not cheap, but at least he had all of the relevant bits to hand that he could install largely by himself. Pulling a V12 out of an XJS is not the sort of job you do in a couple of hours, but Jeff managed to get it out in a few days. In the meantime, he had to fit the manual gearbox conversion kit to the 6-litre engine. This required the block to be drilled and tapped to accept the conversion plate, but once that was done, the gearbox went straight on. Note the geared starter motor conversion. See the size comparison. What a weight saving that was! Getting the engine ancillaries fitted was not a simple task, as he had to resolve quite few issues with missing and worn bits. For example, the cooling manifold pipes on the side of the head were corroded and he had to find and fit new bits. The alternator and the aircon compressor were missing and he had to find the correct one that was fitted to US cars. Simply Performance in the UK was very helpful here and found the right bits. Many hours went into fitting all the right ancillaries and cleaning up, but it was finally done. Then it was time to insert the power unit. Once everything had been fitted in place, the XJS was taken to Brett Thomas at Thomas Jaguar, an excellent engineer, at Newcastle, who then plumbed up the oil cooler, and a myriad of other items including the air conditioning hoses. He also fabricated a rear mount for the gearbox and earlier made up an oil trap in the sump. Finally, the powertrain in place, but of course it now needed to be wired up. As he freely admits, this is not Brett's forte, so the car was then trailered it to Phil Armour at Amor Motorsport at Penrith. Phil fitted the latest and greatest Motec engine management system. Jeff was keen to get an ECU with knock detection as he had burnt pistons in another engine when the ignition had over-advanced on the tarmac rally with disastrous results. The engine was completely stock in every respect at this stage. The 5-speed manual was the most significant change, so the power output was relatively modest. Then Jeff was seduced by Simply Performance producing a set of stainless steel headers. After he had these ceramic coated in Penrith, he had Brett fit these in place of the cast manifolds. Ian Hissey tells me that the power gain is minuscule, but Jeff likes the sound. It's not noisy, but you can tell it's not a standard system anymore. The ceramic coating is supposed to reduce the underbonnet heat. Handling has been improved by installing Bilstein dampers all round, fitting front springs to the 6.0-litre Jaguar specification, a heavier front sway bar and Jaguar Sports 16x8 speedline wheels with 245x16 tyres. One trick with these is the offset on the rear wheels is different to the fronts. The upholstery was rejuvenated, and the carpets cleaned, but little work was required on the interior. When all of this was done, it was time for the paintwork to be tidied up around the windscreen, a usual rust trap on Jaguars. However, this turned out to be a major task as the previous paint job was not bonded properly, and it all flaked off under pressure, so the entire car finished up being repainted by Premier Panel. Finally it was ready, but of course there are always things to do on a 35-year-old car. However, the performance is spectacular with immediate grunt from a 6-litre naturally aspirated car. No waiting for the turbos to spool up when taking off. The 5-speed manual box conversion really releases the performance from the V12 as the normally fitted 3-speed automatics completely stifle the power. Jeff has not fitted the Walkinshaw body kit that was optional as he considers these rather vulgar and bulky and prefers the look of the original cars that won the Bathurst 1000 in 1985.